Welcome to the NEREJ NYREJ Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Kaplan, and my guest today is John Schultzel, and he is with Olympia Hospitality. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Rick. Thanks for having me this morning.
Well, thank you for coming on. Tell me a little bit about your journey in the hotel industry and a little bit about Olympia Hospitality.
My pleasure. Well, again, my name is John Schultz. I'm the Chief Growth Officer here at Olympia Hospitality. And I'm for all intents and purposes also the elder statesman of our group. I've been with Olympia for almost 24 years now. And my journey to Olympia and to Portland came right after 9/11. In my personal life, I met a lovely woman, and we lived in two different towns. We picked Florida or Maine, and Maine it was. I was working for Host Marriott at the time, doing some asset management work, and before that, I was with Bristol Hotels and Resorts based in Dallas, which at one point was one of the US's most prominent hotel management companies. And great culture. It was a great place to learn from. And then before that, I was a restaurateur and learned the hard way what life is like in restaurants. And if you're going to commit to that lifestyle long term, you have to accept what comes with that. And I wasn't totally ready to do that. So that pushed me into the hotel world. And so, I moved up to Maine. We didn't know 9/11 was coming, but right afterwards, you may recall, Rick, it was a really weird time. Not unlike the sort of immediate aftermath of COVID, where people just stopped traveling for a period, and then people sort of regrouped and tried to figure out what they were comfortable with and what to do next. It wasn't the best time to find a hotel job in a new town, but I stumbled across this company. It was based in Maine, and it recently relocated its headquarters from Bangor, Maine, further up into the state, down to Portland. And the company had ambitions of doing some hotel real estate projects and had an existing portfolio of Holiday Inns that were born in the early days of holiday franchising in the early 70s. And we just kind of came across each other. And that company was Olympia. It was originally the Aaron Company. Our founder actually co-founded the company with Tom Walsh of Ocean Properties back in the late 60s. And so obviously Tom's company turned into Ocean Hospitality in Portsmouth, and they've done tremendous things over the years. And we, took a company that had some really old assets going into, the 21st century, and have, leveraged that and expanded that into a growing portfolio of owned and managed hotels and a lot of third-party work over the last 2 decades. And so we're up to, Olympia Hospitality is up to 35 hotels under management. And we're up and down the East Coast in the Midwest, and as far west as Denver at the moment, and would love to see the company grow all the way to the Pacific Coast by the time I hang up the cleats at the end of my career.
Well, it's a very interesting career. And
Thank you.
And you're lucky you ended up in the Portland area, which is probably one of the hottest spots right now in New England.
You couldn't ask for more. Maine is the way life should be. We moved here really for quality of life, back in 2001. And, the quality hasn't changed. It's only gotten better. I think Portland still retains a lot of its small town character, but obviously there was I don't know if you saw this, but CNN did a, best towns to visit in the US just a couple of days ago, and Portland was number 4 on the list. I still leave our car doors unlocked in our driveway, and the commute to the office is less than 10 minutes, and I can get through TSA on my way to anywhere in the US in 20 minutes from my house. So you can't beat that.
No, you can't really beat that. In Portland, they have some great restaurants and entertainment as well. And
yeah, we were just talking. We had 2 more James Beard winners in the community last year. I think they're both bakers, actually. But yeah, if you like to eat, you're in the right spot in this neck of the woods.
Well, I might have to check all that out because I spend Fourth of July's up in the Maine area, so uh, I'm always interested in finding some interesting things to go to.
Give
That
me a
might be
heads
one
up
of
when
them.
you're through. I think even Dave Portnoy gave one of the pizza places over on Washington Ave like a 9.1 not long ago.
9.1. I never
Yeah, it's a
heard of
pretty
them
good
give anything
score,
9.1.
right? Exactly.
Wow. And I want to mention that this annual hotel and hospitality event that we put on in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, you'll be speaking on the panel as well this year.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. It'll be my first time there, and thank you for the invitation. I look forward to it.
Well, I know you'll do great, and I know the rest of the panel, which is phenomenal guys that I'm sure you have run into in the past that are also in the hotel industry, will be speaking. So make sure you come out and see John.
Yeah, let's see it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what's going on in the hotel industry because I'm hearing a lot of different things right now that some of the hotels are trying to come up with different concepts. Like I saw like a regular hotel and a long-term stay hotel. They're kind of combining to make one hotel. It's certain things like that. And then now and this has been going on for a little while, the boutique hotels, which is something that you specialize in.
Yeah, I think we're definitely we've touched sort of all aspects of lodging, with the exception of really, large scale urban hotels and convention hotels. But certainly in my time here at Olympia, we have seen, even within our own practice, a migration to boutique independent hotels. We still really enjoy, high quality franchise properties, and some of our best performing assets fall into that category. But I think with the prominence of the internet and other ways to distribute and market hotels, be it through social media or through new distribution partnerships and other soft branding opportunities, uh, that combined with, I think, evolving traveler preferences, where people come to Portland, Maine, for an example, they want to experience what is Portland like, as opposed to being in a Hampton Inn, because the rates at a Hampton Inn in Portland, Maine are still $250. So you might as well experience the destination, and I think that applies to any number of marketplaces. And so we've certainly seen more interest and more activity on the boutique independent side, and we've tried to tool our operation and our home office support team to be more fluent in the disciplines that go with that, including food and beverage, digital marketing, and revenue management. In this particular time, Rick, I think you probably know this, and I'm sure other people who you've been on the phone with or met with, it just requires a lot of creativity to get things done today. I think we certainly are to a place where I think we know what to expect from RevPAR trends, and we've seen a lot of cost escalation, both on the operations side, but also on the development side. But I think we've been at a place where we really want to get things done. The projects that we're opening over the last 24 months and in the next 12 months typically have some type of creative capital structure. In some cases, they're owned by colleges and universities, which is, definitely one of the cornerstones of our business. And so, without historic tax credits or without, a financing package that doesn't include traditional senior debt or construction loans, it's really hard to get work done. And the work that is getting done, I think, is very nuanced and very specific to the destination. And that, again, speaks to boutique lodging more than traditional franchise lodging.
Now you speak of creative, that you have to be a little more creative in the industry nowadays. But I hear a lot of people in the industry kind of joining forces with other companies and kind of doing this joint venture. Is that something that you see growing in the industry?
I think so. I do think a lot of investors, be they institutional or even, private real estate owners, family office, I think they like lodging. And I think hospitality in general, is a fairly favorable sector, especially given, how tumultuous it is in office right now and where things might be going with multifamily. But, lodging's been around forever, will always be around. And, as you look for ways to raise capital on the private side, you reach out to, atypical investor groups, and there's an appetite there for sure. One of the things that we're exploring right now, as another example, is trying to work with large lifestyle retail owners, mall companies, if you will, on ground lease arrangements for hotel sites that are sort of embedded into, very stable, very effective regional retail destinations. And if you do those on a ground lease, as an example, you can activate and support a mall, which is very complementary, bringing travelers to retail, and also, get a site without a tremendous amount of acquisition costs. You don't have to tie up cash, getting site control. And so that's, sort of one example of creativity that I think is required. We're obviously, historic tax credits have been another thing where you try to, a hotel that we did at the University of Maine is another great example. The universities don't want to own hotels, but they did a P3 partnership with a private group based out of Philadelphia, Harrison Street, and Bank of America for historic tax credits, and found a way to deliver a hotel to the campus that repurposed, two defunct buildings. The university gets, activation on their campus in a hospitality asset with, limited risk to them. And there's nobody had to go out and get a construction loan with a regional bank. So another example of sort of a marriage of different types of groups making things work.
Yes, when you speak of something on that idea, a lot of times you hear of like a college they'll rent out the rooms as like a dorm space. So kids will be living there for like 6 months.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad gig for the kids, but I don't know how that works out for the hotel. And now we have all this, I don't know how it is in Maine. I know Massachusetts with the migrants, they've been putting them up in hotels,
Mhm.
Where it got to a point where when there's events going on that weren't any rooms for, the paying guests, legitimate paying guests.
Yeah.
So how is that all affecting your business?
That's an interesting point. I think it's been well documented in New York City, for instance, that, thousands of rooms have been taken out of the marketplace, and that's helping drive RevPAR performance in the city. Even in smaller markets, I'll use Portland as an example, since it's in our backyard. A number of rooms were out of market for transitional housing or temporary housing. And once they go off, they're hard to bring back on because that use is very hard on the physical product. So in general, what it does is it sort of, it restricts the supply, and it, as demand returned, I think it gave everybody a little bit of a boost in terms of pricing performance. And even in some of our older assets, we've explored alternate uses in partnership with the municipalities, because for a hotel that may be sort of at the tail end of its capital cycle, being able to get that kind of income for a aging, select service or budget economy hotel, is a win-win. So, I think there's case studies where that's a good thing. On the campus side, you bring up a good point. During COVID, we had a number of our campus clients repurpose hotels for isolating students or quarantine or what have you. And that was temporary, and we knew it would be temporary. And that required us to really keep guests and students separate. And I will say the notion of guests and students sort of cohabitating in a hotel is definitely a tricky one. It doesn't work as well as you would think. So you got to kind of lean into one or the other. Actually, I just learned not too long ago that Syracuse University just converted their old Sheridan, which is sort of right at the base of campus. They're going to convert that to student housing. next year. On the flip side of the coin, Georgetown University, who took their hotel offline back in 2019 or 2020, excuse me, for COVID, is now wants to reintroduce that hotel back to the campus as a hotel. So, I think every community has different needs. Hotel rooms, you sort of look at them based on their highest and best use. And if, as an owner, if there's a better opportunity for us to have a successful investment by committing those rooms to another purpose, so be it. And we do that obviously being mindful of what the long-term impacts of that decision are on the hotel building itself.
So now you have these new creative ideas that come out for mostly new projects, not the existing projects that have been thriving for many years, except for during that COVID era. So what are some of the new creative ideas that you see coming forward?
Well, that's an excellent question. I think part of it is how you deal with, right now, I think, why are people traveling and what do they want to accomplish at their destination? And, one of the things that I think we're all sort of seeing is that, people are marrying their work pursuits with their leisure pursuits. And so how do you deal with things on your room inventory and your accommodations to allow for working better in the room or the public spaces? We certainly see a tendency to want to put some mix of extended stay units into any project because extended stay did so well during COVID and post-COVID, and it's still a way to add a layer of inventory to a boutique independent room, which isn't, subject to brand standards and design requirements that sort of make the project more flexible depending on, what type of scar tissue you had from COVID. So I think flexible room configurations is definitely part of it. Food and beverage is, I think we're sort of changing the way we try to execute. We certainly still have destination restaurants in our boutique hotels, for instance, but a lot of our technology on the food and service POS side is about, what really works well for to-go orders and grab and go and people being able to take food with them when they're going somewhere or back up to their room and trying to get out of traditional table service, which is quite frankly just a lot more expensive for the owner and operator to execute. So we're trying to streamline those types of things. Obviously, how we message and brand is always creative. I think creativity is the essence of marketing today, and trying to connect with people the way they want to be connected to. So we have to, if we have a promotional campaign, we're reaching out by email, we're broadcasting through our website, that we're trying to tap into our followers on our social media channels. So, there's a lot, the toolkit's a lot more diverse. And that creativity applies to, what are you doing on a daily basis to make your hotel interesting so that it stands out from all the competitors in your destination. And then on the back end, again, I think it's, trying to think about design and trying to think about MEP and systems so that you can build a hotel as efficiently as possible. Sometimes it's about short-term, cost recovery, and sometimes it's about, how efficient the building can be long-term if you plan on owning it, for 20 or 30 years.
So now we're, back to normal almost.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, people are traveling like I can't tell you. It's like enormous. It's the tourist and the travel industry has to have exploded in the past 2 years. Have you seen that kind of increase, and you have that kind of volume going through your hotels?
Absolutely. I mean, thinking about, this is really about New York and New England. And in 2022, the amount of pent-up demand that we all benefited from was absolutely remarkable. I do think we saw some, I think we were a little spoiled by that. 2023, last year, was a little more tempered. I think people could travel overseas. I saw something on the Wall Street Journal yesterday about Americans are still across the pond in droves, and it's creating a lot of congestion for European destinations. But we're certainly seeing a lot of people driving up I-95, I-89 up into Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, and Maine, because these are really accessible destinations. People definitely want to travel. I do think we're seeing a lot of stability on the upper tier. People with a lot of discretionary who don't really care about rates or whatever. That the pace of that business is extremely strong. In the sort of the mid-level tier, it's a little hit or miss. We were joking around before the show about the weather, and I do think that will certainly influence the coming season. We're off to a good start, of course, but I think the travel volume in our regions has been consistently very good. Olympia has been around for 50 years, and I can say just in my 25 years of being here, people still came to New England, our leisure destinations during the recession, because it was, you could drive up instead of getting in an airplane. There's a lot of different location types. I would say that also applied to COVID. We recovered very quickly because you could be outside. And I think one of the things that we're all trying to do in New York and New England is try to expand the seasons further into the fall and earlier into the summer, with programming and activities and things to do, kind of in those off-peak times as well. So
well, that's very interesting because I just see the kind of volume of like airlines, all those issues, because there's so many people on there trying to fly out of everywhere, and on top of that, there are areas, our weather patterns have changed completely, so that's thrown off our air travel and probably somewhat of our road travel at some point, but not to mention the traffic situations in parts of New England. I'm not going to mention which parts, but it can be.
they're out there.
Yeah, they're kind of serious as well. John, so are you always looking for additional investors to come into your company, help out?
Yeah, I think so. We've always been, our investment group has always been sort of the friends and family network, if you will. And I think we've got such a good track record with our owned and managed hotels that, we go there first, and there's typically a lot of willingness to reinvest in our next projects. But we've typically, we'll do a PPM, and we'll go out to our normal groups. The other thing we've really tried to do is be strategic with our JV relationships. We have a couple of great partners who really want to split the project with us. So, we'll be responsible for half the equity, and another partner will be responsible for the other half. And that allows us to sort of, limit the amount of capital we have to put into every deal, which allows us to do more deals. We typically, while we have some hotels that are wholly owned by Olympia, I think we're happiest in the 25 to 40% range of the equity, which, means we're fully committed. All of our deals are pari passu, so we treat our investor equity the same way we treat ourselves. We don't promote ourselves right away. We only do that after the return of capital and a preferred return. And so, I think that setup lends itself to loyalty because, if people are getting their money back, and our, historical IRRs are really strong, when we come up with the next project, there's a lot of willingness to come back to us. So we don't have to cast a particularly broad net to attract investment. When we do, again, we're sort of, usually it's somebody saying, passing the PPM to, somebody else they know, to help us sort of fill it in.
So, John, if someone wanted to find out some more information about the company, Olympia Hospitality, is there a website they can go to?
Yes, we do have olympiahospitality.com. Ironically, we're in the process of actually rebranding that. So not all of the content is active right now. Um, but our portfolio is there, and a little bit about our culture and how we do things is certainly on the website. And that will continue to be adding layers to that as we develop the content with our new logo and new image and whatnot. Again, going back to one of the things you mentioned earlier, we used to be called Olympia Hotel Management, and our identity was sort of rather blocky and corporate. And I think as we've tried to evolve into a boutique hotel development and management company, we've wanted to make sure that the way that we present ourselves looks the part. I could be a little bit, slapstick about, how the attire changes when you go to a boutique lodging conference versus a more traditional Alice conference. But, there's art and creativity blended with the science of hospitality that is sort of the cornerstone of our new identity, and that shows up in our website, actually.
And they can there's contact information.
Oh, absolutely.
In there. Okay. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show, John. We're talking with John Schultzel of Olympia Hospitality. Listening to the NYREJ podcast. I'm your host, Rick Kaplan. Until next time.